All right. So, question number one, what is the future of UX? So, you may have been seeing some interesting headlines recently and some interesting commentary about UX transitioning and making there's a lot of change in UX. I think there's a little bit of trepidation about what might be the outcome of robots and AI models, but also that I've seen headlines that like the golden era of UX is gone, and some of the things that are circulating about are UX engineers now more valuable and meaningful than UX designers, and meaning UX engineers are folks who can front end code, who also have the skill set and knowledge to create user centric experiences. They understand data sets. They can also do the UX research. It's more of like a one stop shop. One person does it all kind of UX person who's also a good designer and proficient at UI. My thinking is, I think UX is still a meaningful and valuable a skill set on its own. I think there are many corporations who still don't have a strong grasp on their customers' needs, motivations, and desires. And I think it's prevalent as we look around and engage with experiences that there's a lot of opportunity for those experiences to be improved. And someone needs to be able to identify what parameters on which something can be improved. And that doesn't just come from, an OKR or a roadmap. It really has to come from the customer itself. And so I think UX research still has its place. I certainly think UX architects still have their place, especially for more complex user flows, dashboards, and other data heavy experiences that have very complex data sets and user flows. Perhaps for website design, maybe with the adaptation and addition of zero code, there's an opportunity for one person to be able to kind of go womb to tomb on a project, 0 to 1, and get something launched without ever utilizing engineering teams or strategy teams or product management. But I think that's probably well suited for maybe smaller organizations or even startups. I think in larger organizations, you're still going to see job postings that are specific to UX. All right. Well, what about AI? So, yeah, you can't quote me on this, but I think AI is imitation. What I mean by that is AI was created by humans, and AI doesn't have a soul. It was developed to replicate. It's not empathetic, and one of our primary attributes or qualities as a UX UI designer, as a professional designer in the creative field, creative arts, is we have to be empathetic. We have to understand our intended audience, their needs, their desires, what's motivating them, and we have to understand how we are going to connect our experience with them in a meaningful way. And AI does good at hypothesizing, but it only gets you so far. It doesn't have empathy, and it doesn't have a soul. And it's only, I would say, replicating or trying to parody what's been modeled for it. Someday maybe AI is going to become more uh, stronger at learning, and it might identify patterns that are empathetic patterns, in which case perhaps AI models will become more human. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. So I think AI is still a great tool and resource for UX designers. I think it's a good starting point. I think it could be perhaps an opportunity for inspiration. I really like AI for writing. I'll write a headline and I'll say, give me three other options. And I like being able to kind of pick, you know, uh, pick and choose from those headlines that it writes. And especially if you give it a prompt, like, make this 7 words or less. I like it for those reasons. But in terms of UX design and creating experiences that really serve and impact users in a positive way, AI's got a long ways to go, because the empathy model is just not there. Zero code. Well, let's talk about zero code. I'm probably a little bit behind the curve on zero code. I've used Framer. I've dabbled in Webflow, but I know there are many, many other options out there right now. The thing I like about zero code is you can create almost at the speed of inspiration. That's really meaningful. When a designer has the skills and the tool set to be able to apply an idea, especially when it comes to translating that idea into a scrollable, clickable experience fairly quickly, that is a valuable attribute to have, a valuable tool to have in the toolbox. I think zero code will continue to only grow and become even more of a prevalent tool that's being used in larger applications. As of right now, zero code seems to be really well versed for portfolio projects, personal portfolios, maybe even landing pages or single scrolly telling page structures, multi-site. I just have a feeling, it's going to be really hard to manage and maintain an e-com site, for example, in Framer. You might have a really great landing experience, but you're going to have to use some other CMS to manage a multi-page, multi-organizational structure, a large IA and a lot of different subcategories of content. I just don't think that zero code is there yet. It might get there, but we have probably, most of us have been using Drupal, WordPress, and other CMSs for the past, how long have we been out? 15, 20 years. And that can be zero code if you so desire, but there really haven't been major advancements there. You could still stand up a WordPress site fairly quickly. If you've got your content, you can plop it in and pretty much have everything consistent in one single template in a day. But it's not, it obviously feels like a WordPress site, right away when you look at it. Whereas zero code, I think the direction it's going is really going to be almost bespoke. But where they haven't nailed it yet is a front end zero code tool for designers that also includes robust CMS. So I'll be looking forward to seeing that. How do I manage difficult stakeholders? Oh boy. Well, building trusted relationships, I think, is the way you do that. There are a myriad of different ways you can build trust. I was just talking with a colleague about this earlier today. When opinions are strong and a stakeholder can only see it their way and no other way, it's challenging. You have to step in as a partner and ask some provocative questions. I often use statements like this. Well, let's assume that that's true. Let's assume that your hypothesis is true. Tell me what does it mean for the customer? Or where did you get this information? How did you arrive at this hypothesis? And then that opens a conversation. I'm not saying I disagree. I am saying I'd like to learn more. I'm seeking first to understand. And that goes a long way in building trust. Even if you don't agree, rather than saying, I think you're wrong, that puts the stakeholder on the defensive. You're giving each of you an opportunity to hold a discussion. Perhaps you both come to the conversation with strong opinions. That's fine. Now just level the playing field. Let's say, hey, we both agree to seek truth first. Let's dig to bedrock together, no matter how messy that might be, and define our hypotheses and our strategy based upon the truth signals that we have, and be honest with one another about what we don't know. Hey, I've got a strong feeling. That's totally fine to say. I have a strong feeling. Let's just make sure we mark that as a should do or would test instead of a must do, because it's based upon some definitive, irrefutable data that we learned from the customer. Also, I think it's important to have one-on-ones with stakeholders to have those difficult discussions. But I do also see more opportunities within our UX teams and product teams to incorporate stakeholders into our processes and invite them in to see how the sausage is made. I think when you give a stakeholder an opportunity to see how something is made and the logic that goes behind going from discovery to definition, it helps them understand the value proposition of UX. And rather than UX continuing to feel like a cost center, it starts to feel like a valuable, meaningful investment. There's also something to be said that when people get to be not just stakeholders, but anybody, when anyone gets to be involved, they are invested. And when they're invested, they tend to believe more in the direction and the concept. And we won't always agree, but we can at least say that we're offering the opportunity for stakeholders, if they're so interested, to join us, see how the sausage is made, learn, and ultimately we grow from that together as a team, and we continue to build trust and demonstrate value over time. How do I find purpose in my career? So this is something I've been focused on a lot lately in helping the folks that I coach and mentor. And I wonder how people see this statement and what they think about it. So immediately you might say, oh, this is too woo-woo for me. I'm not really interested in purpose or meaning. My career is just a paycheck. Well, I said that for a long time as well, where my skill sets were just something that I felt like there was a financial transaction. But as I've grown in my career, I've learned that my desire is really to nurture and help and empower and equip others to do their best work. And when that became relevant and very clear in my life, I started to think about stewarding my skill set in a much different way. And that helped me. So I learned that wasn't, I learned through several different roles that I had been in that's an uncommon, it's not an uncommon thing for designers, especially, to feel like they're not maximizing their full creative potential in the role that they're in. And a lot of designers will get their kicks by taking on side projects and focus on other things that brings them joy or gives them an opportunity to flex the other muscles, the creative muscles that they have. But I think that there's an opportunity within our current roles and within the roles that we're applying for and companies that we're looking to join to also do that within as I'll call it an entrepreneur, with an entrepreneurial spirit, someone who comes in and supports a team to steward that team, to serve as a leader in that team, count others more important than themselves, and ultimately have an impact on the people that they work with, which ultimately has an impact on the product that they deliver to the customers. And if you take care of the people, you take care of the customers, and you give them an opportunity to take care of customers in a very unique way. And so what I've done is with the people I'm helping is I've created a way for people to easily come up with their creative mission. So when you have your creative mission statement and you feel really confident and comfortable with it, now you can use that as a litmus test as you're exploring new opportunities. And the way we do that is a laddering framework. So this is a self-evaluation, and the laddering framework ends with the mission statement, but it starts with your gifts and talents. And so I just put this together beforehand, and here are my principles. The principles are the tent poles, if you will. The mission is that one unifying statement that pulls all the principles together. It's the thing that you wake up, you want to do in the morning, the thing you're excited about, the thing you could do the rest of your career and just feel like you're in the pocket. And if you don't know what your principles are, you can start with gifts and talents. And gifts and talents these are tangibles. Research or empathy or architecture, information architecture, UI, design, content creation. Those are gifts, talents, and passions that your principles may emerge from. So sometimes when I'm meeting with somebody, they immediately know what principles drive them. But sometimes we have to start at the bottom, and from there, through a series of just asking questions, we can arrive at some principles. And so here are mine, just for the sake of, for this example. So my principles are: bless others through service, lead with humility, equip and encourage, and create with excellence. And what we do next is we take these principles and we mash them together and identify what that mission statement is. And for me, it's to empower, equip, and encourage creatives to maximize their creative potential through the service of others. Now, yours is probably going to be different than that, but this is one way that you can then look at roles and look at job descriptions and identify the ones that you think are going to fit and the ones that aren't. And this is also something that I think is challenging for people, but I do want to encourage, especially now in this job market. It is very challenging. I know people who have had like 20 interviews and have not, or first calls and have not had a second call back, which is could be even more challenging than if you don't ever get a call. And there are, I think, it's over 100 average applicants for each role right now. And that doesn't include, that's just like local roles. I think if you look at like remote roles, it's I think 5x that. And so there's a lot of fear here. I'm going to go to my camera here. So for those of you who are in job search, it's really challenging. There are many applicants for one job. And something that we all need to consider and remember is only one person gets that job. There are 99. If you are one of 100 applicants, and 99 other people are disappointed and having to deal with the disappointment of not getting the job. So first and foremost, you're not alone. I've been there. I'm one of those people. Been rejected many times. And what that can do when someone is amid a job search is it can start creating some urgency and some fear that maybe the voice that's going through your head is I'm never going to get another job. I'm going to be unemployed. I'm going to be on the unemployment line, and I'm going to lose my house or lose my stability, or my life's going to get really, really tough. Well, I do encourage you to, one, do the creative mission framework. Really identify that mission statement. Make sure you know it, or make sure you believe it. And when you go into interviews, don't stray from it. And you're in an interview and you start straying from your creative mission, before you're even hired, you are going into an identity crisis. And you're inviting imposter syndrome before you've even got the job. And I don't know if you've experienced that, but if you're like me, you've probably been there, where it was a certain job that you were really excited about, and the person that you were meeting with, maybe you weren't gelling with, and maybe you felt like they weren't connecting, and so you started shifting or changing your viewpoints, or maybe started changing the way in which you were communicating your values, and what was important to you, and what your experience is. And yeah, that's setting you up for failure, because you are already entering into imposter syndrome before you've even been offered the job. What I would suggest is stay true to your mission. Figure out what that is, go through the framework, figuring out what it is, and then just make that be your North Star when you're talking to people. And you will be amazed how calm and at ease you are. Because remember this, the best place for you to be is the best place for you to be, not the best place that someone else tells you to be. There is a purpose and a meaning for your life, and you, by identifying what your innate gifts and talents are and how you've been called to utilize those gifts and talents to serve others and create impact in this world, that will bring you the most meaningful and valuable sense of purpose in your life. So best thing for you to do is to maintain that, utilize that as a litmus test utilize your North Star, your creative mission statement as a litmus test for the opportunities you will or will not entertain. And then maintain that North Star in your mind as you're having conversations. And if they don't pick you, just know it's not a right fit for you. It's not the right role for you. Don't try to play the role that they want. Don't try to be the person that they want. You're setting yourself up for failure. Just feel confident and know that the right job is out there, and it might take a little bit longer. Now, I know that some people we do have to pay our bills, and sometimes we get desperate. I would just encourage you to hold on as long as you possibly can. Be patient and continue to look for that right role. And if it doesn't come your way and you have to take something, that's fine. You got to do what you got to do. But just know that you don't have to put your faith and trust in a job, because let's face it, things come and go. Jobs aren't forever. Companies fold, stock prices plummet, teams reorganize, layoffs happen. Don't put your trust, when you get that job, don't put your trust in the job. Don't put your trust in a person to put you first. Always remember that, you can't trust a job to be your source of identity in this life, because jobs come and go. So, all right. Well, that was long-winded. And I think I've done a pretty good job of talking to myself for the past 40 minutes. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to talk about. Fear of failure. Fear of failure. Yeah, I think we'll save that for another time. So, how long did I have this scheduled for? Okay, well, I'll call that a wrap for my first live. Hopefully, the next one is more eventful. And I really appreciate anybody who watches this after the recording. And we'll talk to you soon.